Space? Just space? Where are the balls? Now you got it. Right! At last! Spaceballs, the movie.
De filmcomedie is levendiger dan ooit. Jonge komieken verdringen zich om de leeggekomen plaatsen aan de top in te nemen. Abbott en Costello, Danny Kaye, Jerry Lewis, Red Skelton, Bob Hope en Lucille Ball... ze bestaan als bioscoopattractie niet meer. Nieuwe namen op billboards garanderen amusement... en de lachfabriek in Hollywood is in volle gang om leuke films af te leveren. Norman Wisdom behoort tot een uitstervend ras. Getraind in vaudeville, zoals bijna alle komieken van de zwijgende film... trad hij op in variététheaters in Engeland en Amerika. Toen hij de sprong naar de film maakte, werd hij in de jaren 50 Engelands topkomiek. Maar met het instorten van de Britse cinema was er voor hem ook geen amplooi meer. Hij verlegde zijn terrein weer naar Amerika en maakte een van zijn beste films, The Night They Raided Minsky's. Daarna kwam Broadway en hij kreeg een Tony Award voor de musical Walking Happy. TV en toneel zijn nu weer zijn territorium.
Well, I've been to America and done shows there. Then I came back and starred at the Prince of Wales Theatre in London. And whilst I was there, Ian St. John, Rank Organisation, came in and saw me. And he obviously took a fancy to my style of comedy. And so he approached my agent and asked me if I would do a film, sign the contract to do some. Now, ABC Films were after me at the same time, 2 different films. Normal procedure is you to go and do a film test. But because they were competing for me, they forgot the film test. The Rank Organisation signed me on a 7-year contract and then asked me to do a film test. With a film director, a famous man called Ronald Neame. You've heard of him? Sure. And I did a film test with Petula Clark. Right?
Yeah.
And the line I remember was that they had me to say to Petula Clark, I had to look at her and hold her hand. You don't mind if I hold your hand? Your eyes are as light as gossamer. And that was supposed to be funny. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, the film test was a flop, and they paid me out for the first film and didn't even do it. And when the second film came along, they obviously said, well, we can't keep paying him out, and we've signed him for 7 films. And so they got the story together of Trouble in Store was the first one. Trouble in Store. And so I did Trouble in Store. They were all very nervous during the time I was doing the film, all very nervous, and they were nervous to such an extent that they had a sneak preview at the Camden Theatre Odeon when the film was finished to see how it went. And I was waiting in the foyer, the hall, as the various directors came in, and they said to me, good evening. Hello, Mr. Wisdom. Yes, and somebody else came in and said, yes, I hope it'll be all right. And then I went in, and I was so frightened because of this attitude, and I watched the audience's faces, not the film. I watched the audience's faces, and of course it was wonderful because the audience's faces were like this. Which is you'd want to do that? But they laughed. It was marvelous. And then when I was in the hall afterwards, in the foyer, as they came out, different altogether. Oh, Norman! Oh, you're wonderful. Oh dear. You know, showbiz. Oh, poor. So, but of course, it's a lovely. It's lovely. And my first film, I had a British Film Academy Award.
I will even overlook your taking of the shoot and your destruction of it. Our ambition is to have a staff worthy of our confidence. A staff composed of men and women whose one aim in life is the prosperity of couragers. A staff in which there is not one black sheep. Alas, it was not to be. You, sir, have tarnished the name of the greatest show in England by your lack of discipline and your complete disregard of responsibility. And now, Miss Higgins, take a reference. To whom it may concern, Norman, just fill in the name yourself, has been in the employ of Burridge's for some considerable time.
Get out!
Get out! Quickly, get this man out of here. Yes, sir. Get him out quickly. Outside with him. Get out.
No, sir. Can I just have 5 minutes just to say goodbye?
Not 1
All I
second.
want to do is...
You can never come into this store again. If he shows his face here, send for the police. But get him outside.
Was there any influence from other comedians, from film, from silent movies, from other... Did you...
None whatsoever. In fact, I remember when Ian St. John spoke to me about it, he said, we would like you because you're so completely novel, so new. And so he said, I must ask you, since you haven't done any films before, is there anybody on who you would place your experience? And I said, well, no, not really. I said, I'm an admirer of Chaplin's, but I haven't seen many of his films. He said, good. Well, that's what I want. He said, I don't want you to think about anybody else except Norman Wisdom.
Norman, every comedian has his own things where he works with, his attributes, his way of mimic. You had your cap.
Yes.
You also had a sort of created a person who was a, shall we say, Cockney person, very ordinary person.
Well, he's called the Gump.
The
really.
Gump. That's
Yes.
what's the name for it?
Yes, the Gump.
The Gump.
Which
A
just
nice fellow, normal
silly,
fellow.
silly person.
Silly person who
Simple.
gets slapped around a lot in movies. Some
Yeah.
comedians get slapped around.
Yes.
Chaplin was somebody who slapped other persons, but Law and Hardy were slapped around, you were slapped around, and then you got back at the persons most of
That's
the
right,
time.
yes.
And then
Yes.
you had your villains for that, Jerry Desmond.
Straight
And
man.
Straight Man.
That's right,
yeah.
yes. Jerry Desmond, yes. It was marvellous, Jerry, lovely man. Dead now. But this all started because I was doing a little summer season with a conjurer called David Nixon. You ever heard of David Nixon? Well, anyway, he was a conjurer, and at that time we had a different program each week for 4 weeks, and then go back to the first program. And you need a lot of material for that. And I got to the 4th week, and I just about got the material I required, and he was having difficulty, so he said, would you come up and help me on stage, just do a couple of silly tricks with me. So I said, okay. So I made it look as though I was invited up from the audience. And I went out into the town at Scarborough, this was, which is a seaside town, and I bought a tight-fitting little grey second-hand suit, an old one, and for 30 shillings, and a cap for 1 shilling. I don't know how many. What's yours in Holland? It's oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it's peanuts, nothing. And I did that with David Nixon, and it was so successful that we were booked at the London Theatre at the end of the season as a double act. But I didn't want to be a double, and neither did he, so we remained good friends, but we split up, and that's not long after that I was starring at The Prince of Wales, as I said before.
Which means in movies it became the nice straight man, Edward Chapman, Mr. Grimsdale, or the bad straight man, Jerry Desmond,
Well,
sometimes
yeah,
together.
That's right, yes, yes. Yes, Mr. Grimsdale, that's right. It's a high-pitched, Mr. Grimsdale! Funny, I pull up here in my car, or anywhere, and there's the driver of a big lorry would shout, Mr. Grimsdale! And that at me. Marvellous how that's caught on. But yes, and it's really doing things that most people know that they can do, making the mistakes which most people can easily make. But they like to see somebody else make the mistakes, not them, and that's why they laugh.
You are ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
Then, shall we?
Why not?
Ich schlürf es gern in aller Rindereien, ich grüb es gern in jedem Kieselstein. Ich möchte sehr auf jedes frische Beet, mit krassen Namen, der es schnell verrät. Auf jedem weißen Zwergfall möchte ich schreiben. Ein ist mein Wert, ein ist mein Wert, und ein lebe ich, will ich bleiben.
Hello?
Hi, is this Tosh Ockerson?
Who?
Tosh?
Ty Sockers.
Oh, yeah, right. Tice Ockerson. Well, hi. My name is Wendy Jo Sperber. I'm this comedy actress. And, well, my agent told me you were in Hollywood doing a documentary on comedians.
Yeah, that's right.
So can I be in it?
Well, you know, it's, I don't know.
Look, I'm this really funny person. People are always laughing at everything I do. And I have this great act. It's in Venice. It's at the Powerhouse Theater, and I think you should come see me. I think you'd think I was funny.
There's no place for a stage act. This is interviewing people.
No, look, I understand that. I don't have to do my act. You could just interview me, and I could talk to you.
What time is it anyway?
Oh, I guess it's about 7 in the morning.
Oh, great.
So, how about it?
No, I don't think this is really a good time for it. I'm sorry. Bye.
Room 1402, please.
What?
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm very sure. Carl Reiner heeft zijn leven gewijd aan de absurde humor. Acteur, schrijver, producer en regisseur van komische tv-shows en films. Hij maakte Dick Van Dyke populair. En hij was aangever van Mel Brooks in diens creatie van de 2000-jarige oude man. Hij schreef voor Doris Day en regisseerde nieuwe talenten als Lily Tomlin, Henry Winkler, John Candy en Steve Martin.
Well, it was a book that was a play was based on the book that I had written by Joe Stein, the fellow who wrote Fiddler on the Roof. And that year he was doing both at the same time with two hands. He was adapting Sholem Aleichem's Fiddler on the Roof and this. And I said, well, if he could adapt Sholem Aleichem, I'd let him adapt me. And he did a very good job. And then it was a year on Broadway with Alan Arkin. And it was his first play. And then we made the movie about 3 years later.
And that was your first movie you directed?
First movie I directed, yes.
When is this, 1970?
This is 1967.
1967. Long time ago.
For me, it's not. For you, it is. You're right, fella.
Let's look at the other one. There's another famous one, which is probably now a cult movie.
Yeah, this is West Papa. That was done in 1969, I think. 1970, copyright, yes.
Yeah.
I guess we shot it at the end of 69. It came out in 1970. Yes, it was a movie that was based on a book by Robert Klein, and it was such a crazy book that everybody said it's not possible to adapt this book to a movie. But it made me laugh, and all my friends said, you can't make a movie out of this. And I said, yeah, we could try, though. And so we tried, and we made it.
See, there's Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. I think that played in Europe.
Yeah, well, we have it in Holland, and it's an extraordinary film because it has all these old actors in it.
Yeah, that was a fun movie. That movie we made to have a good time, and we decided that we'd like to do a movie that incorporated all the old footage of old great film noir movies, and it was like a puzzle, like doing a jigsaw puzzle, because we had 82 different sets from different old movies, and we had to do a duplication of the sets that existed 40 years ago.
Oh, Marlon. Damn it. You didn't do what I told you. You know how I hate that dumb way of wearing your shirt button with no tie. Let me get you a tie. Here. This one's blue, but you can wear it with brown. You annoy me. I annoy you. You come in here with no tie. You drunk?
Oh, God was the first in the series of God pictures that George did. I think that's by the best of the bunch, yeah. No question about it.
That was a very strong story, right?
It was a good story written by Avery Corman and adapted by Larry Gelbart. And I had a good time with that picture because it was his first big shot after he did the Sunshine Boys. And from that, he decided he's going to live forever. And that was the last Steve Martin movie I did. That was the fourth in a series of movies. We're still friends, but now he's doing pictures all over the place. He's done 3 this year. He's done... This year he's done Roxanne, which he wrote himself. Little Shop of Horrors. He's doing Planes, Trains, and Buses with John Candy right now, a John Hughes film. He's on his way.
He's busy.
He's busy. No, it was a wonderful 4 shows we've done together.
Now this is one of my favorites. That's the comic.
This is one of my favorite pictures. This is, I think, the half of this picture is the best work I've ever done.
It's a tribute to Hollywood.
Written with Aaron Rubin and produced with him. It was a labor of love because it's a subject I really care about, you know, show business, which is early show business, early motion pictures. And Dick Van Dyke was as good as you have to be. I mean, he was an extraordinary performer. There's a series of silent movies we've done in the movie itself. We did 13 of them in 2 days. We walked around the back lots, he and I, and saw whatever sets were up. We said, let's invent a silent movie, you know, 2-3 minute silent movie, and we did. And he just did them. I mean, he said to me, he said, you don't think I was born 50 years too late? I should have been born then and lived then, because he's really a silent movie comedian. But beside that, he's maybe the best light comic actor I ever worked with in my life. You never know how your life is going to go. I mean, you have to go back to when you first started. I started as an actor. But I was always funny as a kid. Made my friends laugh. But I wanted to be an actor. And until the war came along. Remember the war? The big one? Yeah. I know. I didn't know if you were old enough to remember. I know your father would have told you about it. But I was an actor when I went into the service. But you couldn't act in the service. You know, I mean, you couldn't put a play together with a stage. So I got up at the recreation halls and various variety clubs that the soldiers had. And I performed. I told jokes and I did routines. And right before I went to the war, I went and did review comedy. I did sketches. And it was the first time I'd ever done that. And I said, hey, this is fun. This is really what I do. Because even when I did Shakespeare, when I was wearing those tights and being very Shakespearean, in my back of my head was, this is funny. This is funny. I could always kid it when we finished acting. So I had that in me to be involved with comedy. I had ability to make people laugh. I haven't made you laugh yet because we're serious now. We're talking about my life, you know. Yeah.
But then you started with the stage work. When you
I started. Then after the army and during the army, I finally got into, after being in the Signal Corps and being a radio and teletype operator, I got into the Special Service Unit where I performed as a comedian. And right after I got out of the war, I got into reviews on Broadway, so I was performing as a comedian. And one thing led to another. Then television, 1950, hit very big. And I'd been in a review and somebody saw me and I got onto television, a thing called Your Show of Shows with Sid Caesar. And it was 9 years of that. And during that period, I learned how to write because I was sitting in a room full of writers. There was Mel Brooks and Larry Gelbart and Joe Stein and they say Woody Allen, but he wasn't there at that time. He was there later. But all of these wonderful writers. And so I decided that maybe I'd try to write. And I wrote a book called Enter Laughing. And then I wrote a television series called The Dick Van Dyke Show. But it was always comedy, and then my first picture, Enter Laughing, was a comedy, and I really treat comedy seriously. I mean, it's very serious in my life, but it's the serious thought of making people laugh. I mean, you have to take yourself seriously to be funny.
Is it more difficult to do comedy than do something straight as an actor?
No, I don't. Not for comedians. You know, there was a famous Senor Wences, difficult for you, more difficult, easy for me. For comedians, comedy is very easy, but comedians are really commentators, good comedians. By the word comedians, I mean people who can make up jokes, they are talking writers, a lot of comedians, they're commentators. And if you know what life is about, you can comment on it, funnily or not. And a funny person usually can act seriously when called upon. Every great comedian has been able to do serious roles, from Jackie Gleason to, you name him, to Ed Wynn, a famous old comedian that we have here. But I mean, they all can do it. Even Bob Hope, when he's, you know, in his early movies, when he had to play a real love scene, which is serious, he could play it for a minute or two.
Now, there is a difference between a comic, a comedian, and a comedy actor, right?
Yes.
There's a difference. I heard that the comic would be somebody who, like Jack Benny, when he's on stage, he doesn't need lines, he's just funny.
Yes.
And a comedian probably would need very good dialogue, very good lines, and then a comedy actor is an actor who can do comedy.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
this difference.
Then there's the word comedian. There's a light comedian, there's a heavy comedian, there's a slapstick comedian, but the man who's a monologist, he's a kind of comedian. Those are writers, the ones who can get up and make up comments about the world, talk about the airlines, talk about their wives, talk about diseases. They are real commentators, and they I don't know what you'd call them. I have to call them comedians. I mean, it's just a matter of what you're calling them. But there are those people who are naturally funny, clowns. They don't know how to verbalize funny, but they move funny. There are people like Dom DeLuise who can do both. Dom DeLuise walks into a room and you laugh. Mel Brooks can make you laugh anytime he wants because he's got a brain that is so wonderfully warped, but sees the absolute truth and then tells you the truth that you're looking right at and don't see it.
I know a lot of the other girls are turned on by these sort of kinky phone calls, but I really couldn't care less.
But there are certain people whose physical ability, make you laugh. Jerry Lewis was the perfect example. He became almost a bigger hit in France than he was in the United States.
You never worked with him?
No, I never worked with him.
It seems reasonable that you would get together as well, because The Jerk is almost like a sort of Jerry Lewis movie.
As a matter of fact, people said it would have been a Jerry Lewis kind of movie, but it was a little different than Jerry's movie.
Yeah, sure, because what is the quality of Steve Martin?
Steve Martin is a fellow who looks like he's an accountant. He looks like a regular person, and he's outrageous.
Yeah, I'm back. Uh-huh. Yeah, they're gonna be here for a while, don't worry. I've rigged it.
You guys want to stick around for another minute? Nah. Nah, Chad did.
Hang on just a second. They might not be here exactly when you get back, but it's a blue Chevy two-door, and it'll be going south on Hurtado Street. Now, I can't make out the license number, but it'll be pulling a small church.
So, any blue Chevy pulling a small church, I figure that'd be the one. Yeah. Uh-huh.
With your films, I got a feeling that 10 years ago when you did Oh God and The One and Only, that there were good comedies, but they were very mild comedies. In comparison to the first ones you did, were very more controversial. And now the new ones are too, because with Steve Martin you go into sex, and you go into brain surgery, you go into zany things. And
I think what happens is you're a product of your time. There are people who are much more centered than I am. I am a product of whatever's happening. I'm in the industry. Cycles happen, and people. I have a picture now that I'm trying to get off the ground, and it's not quite what they need, but I'm dying to do it, and I think I've got enough power now that I can get some money someplace to do it. But the studios are saying, well, it's not as commercial as you think.
Oh, I have no time. I'm jogging. Sorry.
No, I talked to you on the phone. Don't you want my picture? Please, Mr. Officer, if you'll just talk to me for a minute. Just a minute, Mr. Officer. He's got to be Meshuggah.
Die 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 bum bum die 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 ba bum bum bum. What is the matter with you? Say, look, Holly.
Well, go see who it is. I'm coming. Hold on a second. Pardon me. I'm Mr. Hardy, and this is my very good friend, Mr. Laurel. Were you in any distress?
Yes, that girl is chasing me.
What's she chasing you for?
She wants to be in my movie.
Did you say motion picture?
No, I said movie.
Well, you don't reckon there might be a part in it for us, do you?
No, this is about live comedians. You're both dead.
Well, we were dead, but we got much better, didn't we? We sure did. And I'll have you know, if you make this movie with us, it'll be the best movie you never made. Say, can you see that? Yeah.
Oh! Oh!
Ah! No! No! Oh! 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 Did that hurt? No, get out of my way. Come here. What we need is strategy. I'll take strawberry. Here we go. So you think you're smart enough to make a movie, eh?
Yes, I am.
Well, I bet you're so dumb you can't even count backwards from 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Comedyteams zijn altijd geliefd geweest. De komiek kan niet buiten een aangever, ook al zou hij liever het werk zonder een partner doen. En de aangever zit met de frustratie dat hij zonder zijn komische helft geen recht van bestaan heeft. Stan Laurel en Oliver Hardy waren allebei leuk en hielden hun samenwerking tot het einde vol. Maar Bud Abbott en Lou Costello gingen uiteen. En na 10 jaar samenwerking kon zanger Dean Martin zijn partner Jerry Lewis wel schieten. Het enige komische duo van de jaren 70, Cheech en Chong, is ook uiteen. Cheech Marin werkt al solo aan een eigen film. En Tommy Chong denkt na over de toekomst zonder Cheech.
Tell me, can you tell something about the beginning of your partnership with Cheech? I don't know if that was the beginning of your acting career, but...
Sure. I owned a nightclub. Well, actually, my father and my brother and I, it was family-owned business. And it went through a few changes, the nightclub, but it was a strip club. What do you call it? Burlesque, you know, girls taking clothes off. And I was a musician, and I was on the road playing black music, you know, Motown. And then I went home and I started working in the club, and I formed an improvisational comedy group with strippers.
When was that?
This was in 1968, 69. And out of that group, Cheech appeared. He was an American. He was visiting Canada during the Vietnam War. And so he appeared, and the group was together for a few 9-10 months. And then it broke up. And Cheech and I stayed together, and we formed a team and came down to Hollywood and made it big.
Well, that was first you did radio work, and then you worked on stage before the movie?
Oh yeah, well we worked we did a lot of stage work, nightclubs, anywhere we could play, and then we did records. We did 6-7 records, albums, and then we did the movies.
Yeah, you started with Up in Smoke.
Yeah, Up in Smoke was the first one, yeah.
And that took off very well.
Yeah,
It was a big success.
Did very well. We're still in court over that.
Why is that?
Well, that's the normal thing, you know. If you get a high budget, you get a high grossing movie, you have to go to court to get your money.
Oh, I see.
It's normal.
That's
normal American
What
procedure.
happened when that picture became a big success?
Well, we actually it ruined our stage career. We couldn't work on stage anymore because everybody wanted us to do our movie, you know. Hey, drive the car, man, smoke a joint, you know. And so we couldn't do our stage act anymore, and so we had to do movies, and we went into one after another. We did 6 movies altogether.
Yeah, but
What would your influence be doing those funny sketches and doing the movies? Did you take that from your stage experience,
Yes.
or is there some other comedians that you think, well, we thought we could use that? Is there an influence there?
There was an improvisation style of acting was started out in the 60s, 65, 64, around there. Chicago had a place called Second City. San Francisco had a place called the Committee Club, a group of people. And when I was a musician, I used to travel to these towns, and I'd stop in and watch the improvisational theater. I got very intrigued with it, and that was our style. In fact, we stole a lot of the bits that I'd seen these other people do. I'd show them to the people in Canada and to Cheech, and we started doing them. And they evolved, you know, because it's improvisational. You start off with an idea, and then it evolves into something else, and we eventually it evolved into our own style, which is Cheech and Chong.
Like, here's one of the victims of the burning, man.
Oh, isn't he cute?
That's a pretty sick sight. And so, what we want to do, we want to raise money so we can buy some tanks and anti-aircraft guns, you know.
Good idea.
Because we gotta stop this before it gets out of hand, man, because there's a lot of people in this world that depend on us for their supply of drugs. You know, like, this world would probably fall apart if it wasn't for farmers like us that take time to grow the shit, you know what I mean?
That's right, so that's why we need your money, so send it in, all right? Actually, where are you from?
I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan, man.
Ann Arbor, ow!
Yeah, I was there during the 60s when the universe meant something.
All right, so...
I just like the free form where there's no rules. With comedy, there's no rules. You break rules. That's what you do. You set everything up, and then you sort of try to make it. I look at comedy like Christmas morning. You unwrap presents. You don't know what you're going to get, you know? And that's the way I like to. That's the way I like looking at it. You know?
So, a strong point in all your movies, in the whole comedy act, is of course the dope and fooling around with it. Isn't that very? I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but in this whole American attitude right now, is that a dangerous issue to use in movies? Is that,
absolutely. I mean, if you notice, we haven't had a new movie out since Reagan took power. Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's another thing. I mean, we came up during the '60s, '70s, and dope has always been, you know, marijuana and hash have always been a big part of the music culture, which I come from, and it was fun, and still is. You know, it was fun doing that and being the only ones doing it, because a lot of people were, you know, they would do it if it was like in vogue. Even Johnny Carson used to do dope jokes. You know, he used to use us a lot. You know, he'd do Quaalude jokes, he'd do dope jokes, and it was a lot of fun until people started dying.
But you didn't do another movie with Cheech since Reagan came in, almost.
That's right.
So is there a statement that you can't do it?
Oh yeah, definite statement. Like,
you can't do it.
they would. There's not a major studio in the world that I don't think would go for it. Cannon Pictures almost did. I talked to Cannon. I was going to direct a movie for him in Menachem. One day, showed me all the headlines of cocaine. He says, "Now is the time for a good dope movie," you know. And then I said, "Hey, I'm with you, Manak. You know, let's do it." But then he had his problems, you know, and so we never got that off the ground. And then Cheech started working on Born in East L.A. movie, and so.
And you're on your own now, doing your own movie?
Yeah, right now.
Is this the end of Cheech and Chong?
I hope not. But it's a period in our life where we're not working together. It's hard to say, you know. It's hard to say because it's very relationship like what we had is as strong as it was is very fragile too.
Bob Gale is een vertegenwoordiger van de kwaliteitshumor in het nieuwe Hollywood. Onder supervisie van Steven Spielberg en in samenwerking met regisseur Robert Zemeckis schreef hij een aantal comedies. I Wanna Hold Your Hand, Used Cars, 1941 en het zeer succesvolle Back to the Future. Aan de basis van elke film staat altijd nog te schrijven.
I always enjoyed telling jokes, hearing jokes, finding things that were funny in life when I was a kid growing up. And I always made jokes in class and liked to do practical jokes and all that sort of thing. So somehow, how do we ever know what makes us what we are? Somehow, either in my upbringing or in my genetics, whatever, there's that sense of humor that was strong enough to keep me laughing at life and want to.
But you never became a performer. Was there a time you were supposed to? When you did all those jokes, you thought, I want to be a
No,
actor?
I never really thought. Actually, I loved cartoons when I was growing up. Disney animated cartoons, comic books, and so forth. And at one time, I thought that I'd someday. Actually, when I was in the first or second grade, 6 or 7 years old, I used to tell everybody, I'm going to go to Hollywood someday and work for Walt Disney. Instead, I ended up working for Steven Spielberg, which is the same thing.
Trouble now!
Somewhere. I guess we're gonna have to knock them out ourselves. Well, idea, right? Reese, advance me 60 feet, column left, take up a position, we'll bounce these lights.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Hey, kid, you're the greatest trick put artist I ever seen. And I've seen them all over the world. Here, just sign right here. 7-year contract. Where's Betty? Start you off at 75. Where's Betty?
She went up there.
Hey, wait.
You with the stripes! Hey, you want to be a pal and come help me pick up my ammo?
Yeah. All right.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Okay, forward ho! We got a drop trajectory on Gumbo!
Look out!
Tommy's.
I think that there are some things on the cutting room floor that should have been in the movie and some things that are in the movie that should have been on the cutting room floor. I think that as what happens when you're making a film, you sometimes lose sight of the forest for the trees, and certainly no one can deny the fact that the miniature work in that film is among the best that's ever been done in the history of Hollywood. And Steven was so excited about how well he had recreated Hollywood Boulevard and that whole dogfight up and down. For me, I think that there's a lot more emphasis on that sort of thing in the movie, certainly than there was in the script. The script was about the wartime paranoia of the characters, and I would have preferred to see a little bit more emphasis on the characters and their motivation and who they were, as opposed to the big physical sight gags and stunts and spectacle. Because I think that people identify with people.
Yeah.
And
that's the basic problem with movies today. They're so expensive and they use so much special effect that you can lose the characters, that it's dangerous.
Exactly.
While the old films, Law and Hardy only had Law and Hardy, and the
Right.
Stooges only had the Stooges.
Right.
There was nothing else.
Right, they were funny men, and you could set up the camera and say, be funny. And they would be funny, and you would just watch them and laugh.
Do you like the Stooges? I see a photograph.
Yeah,
here.
I love the Three Stooges. I love
Why?
the
Is that a
Three
preference
Stooges.
towards the other comedians? Is there something special about them that you like?
Well, they are. I guess it ties into cartoons. I love Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and the Three Stooges are, I think live-action cartoons. They are as close to finding human beings that behave like cartoon characters that there have ever been.
Get in that piano and get those cats out. Hurry up.
All right.
Hurry up. I can't reach it. Hold your feet. Get in there.
Sit down.
Take it easy, kid. I'll get you.
Hey, Bo, get me out of here. I'm good.
Hey, Puddinhead, lend a hand.
Which one?
Both of them. Pull. Get me out! Oh, I'm waiting when I get out of here. Get me out of here! Get me out!
But they were silly and they were innocent, more innocent than any other comedian probably.
I guess. They're very broad, very slapstick. Jay Leno is an American comedian who does stand-up, and he has a theory about the Three Stooges. He says that it's about men and women. He says the difference between men and women is that all men love the Three Stooges and all women hate them. I could never get my wife to watch the Three Stooges. She just doesn't understand them. She doesn't understand why I laugh at them. She doesn't understand why I laugh at them, and I've seen the same thing 20 times already, and they still make me laugh. I can't explain it. You can't ever explain what makes somebody laugh at a precise moment. The Zen Buddhism of a joke, you know, that instant when you get it and when you laugh, what really takes place at that instant, who knows?
He's a peeping Tom. Dad!
Hey, wait a minute. Who are you? Stella! Another one of these damn kids jumped in front of my car! Come on out here, help me take him in the house!
Mom, is that you?
You're there now. Just relax. Been asleep for almost 9 hours now.
Had a horrible nightmare. Dreamed that I went back in time. It was terrible.
Well, safe and sound now, back in good old 1955.
1955? You're my mom.
My name is Lorraine. Lorraine Baines.
The germ, actually, of the idea of Back to the Future, separate and apart from the fact that Bob and I were always interested in time travel, I was visiting my parents back in St. Louis, Missouri, and my father went to the same high school that I attended, and I found his high school yearbook. And I was paging through his high school yearbook, and there was his picture. He was president of his senior class. And I looked at this guy, and I said to myself, I wonder, because I hated the president of my senior class, you know, he was a politician. And I said, if I was in high school with my father, would we be friends or not? Would I like that guy? And I came back and I was talking to Bob Zemeckis about that, and as I, you know, related this this thought, the light went off in both of our minds, and we said, boy, what if you could? Isn't that a movie there? What if you could go back and see what your parents were like as contemporaries, and what would that be like?
And almost fall in love with your mother.
Right.
And that happened.
Would you be attracted to your mother? Would she be, you look at a picture of your mother when she was 18 years old, is she attractive or is she a dog? I don't think people get a chance as much today as they used to develop a characterization, to develop, you're a has-been quicker today You get your chance, and if you blow it, you're out of there. I know sometimes big mainstream comedians like Steve Martin or Eddie Murphy will go to the Comedy Store very quietly without announcing that they're going to be there to try out some new material to find out if it's funny. Because that's the biggest question that you have when you're trying to get out there and be funny is, are you funny? Is this joke? Is this material? Is this story that I'm going to tell? Is it funny? And everybody's so out there today trying to make a buck so quick, make big bucks so quick, that I think that it can be stifling. I think we're coming out of a phase where four-letter words were it. I mean, well, maybe not. I guess there's always going to be a market for that, where comedians, their whole humor is getting up there and cursing and swearing and saying taboo things, which is funny for a while, and then I think it kind of wears thin.
But the only one developing himself in front of the camera and behind the camera is Woody Allen in personal movies. And we could discuss if that's funny or not, but there's a certain quality of humor in it.
Well, but see, Woody Allen is also, he's a filmmaker as opposed to a comedian. Now, Bob Hope had his screen persona, and Jack Benny had his, and W.C. Fields had his, but they were always in front of the camera. Woody Allen is behind the camera. Jack Benny had his writers that knew what his persona was, that he was a cheapskate, that he was vain, that he thought he was a great violin star and couldn't play the violin, that he had this old car that he would never sell and was always he was the stingiest man in the world. He developed, for years and years and years on the radio, in movies, and on television, he developed a whole persona based on his vanity and his stinginess. And he had writers that understood that and were behind him to find material or create material for him that fit those parameters.
Bob, are there certain jokes in movies or pieces of comedy you can do on television?
Yes, I think it's gotten, there's self-censorship in this country by the networks, the television networks, that are worried about public opinion, about what things you can and cannot say. We were talking about the Honeymooners a while ago, and one of the things that was very funny about the show, Jackie Gleason, the star, was very fat. They made a lot of jokes in the show about how fat he was. And today, I don't think that you could tell fat jokes on television because the networks will say, oh my God, a lot of fat people watch television, they're going to write letters and they're going to be upset and they're not going to watch this show. Being fat is a social problem, we can't make jokes about that. So there's a whole area of humor there that is not allowed. And it's not because it's mandated, it's because for fear of upsetting someone. I had a personal experience with that sort of thing. We made a television pilot based on the movie Used Cars, which I produced and wrote. And there was a joke in there where one of the car salesmen says, these cars are in such bad shape we couldn't even sell them to the Braille Institute. And the network said, you can't tell that joke, you can't film that, you can't put that on film. I said, what do you mean? It's funny. They said, no, you're going to upset all the blind people. I said, what's there to be upset about? They said, no, you can't do that. You just upset the blind people. I said, what, a lot of blind people watch television? They said, you'd be surprised at how many blind people watch television. So there is a fear of backlash, I guess is the right word, if that translates. There's a fear that people are going to be so offended by something that they're not going to watch it. And I think that one of the important things about humor is that you push, you make fun. That's what it's all about. You make fun of things. You make fun of the president. You make fun of a fat person if it's funny, not if it's in bad taste, of course. And then who defines taste? And that's what makes the world go round. My definition of what's in good taste and Mel Brooks' definition of good taste might be different, but that's what creates diversity and interest and makes all the movies and things much more interesting.
music. Extend my arms. Rotate my head. Eat a pickle. Wait, Tice! Tice! Where you going? Wait! Come back! Mr. Offerson!
Als de jaren 80 een bepalend gezicht moeten gaan krijgen op het gebied van comedy, dan zou Whoopi Goldberg er een stempel op kunnen gaan drukken. Direct van haar Broadway one-woman show gepromoveerd naar Steven Spielberg's Color Purple in een ernstige rol, is ze nu haar weg aan het zoeken in een serie films die sterke humoristische elementen bevatten. Maar Whoopi Goldberg ziet zichzelf niet als een nieuwe komiek.
Whoopi, I want to talk about comedy with you, but I think we have to make it clear that you don't like to be called a comic, you don't like to be called a comedian. What would you like to be called?
Just an actor, it's
An
fine,
actor.
yeah.
An actor who does comedy?
No, an actor is periodically funny. And I have a real specific reason. It's because, you know, when people think about Eddie Murphy or they think about Robin Williams, if you go to their movies and they're not funny, or funny in the way that you expect them to be funny, it's very tough on an audience, because an audience can go to a nightclub and see these guys and they're hysterical. But you can't go to a nightclub and see me do my stuff. And even if you see it, it's not ha ha ha, yuck, yuck, yuck. So I'm very leery to be called that because I don't want to disappoint people.
Right.
You know?
I saw your Broadway show. And,
Oh, good.
And I mean on video. I
Yeah.
didn't go to Broadway. It's not there
I figured.
anymore. But what struck me was that maybe people came to have a good time and to laugh, but what you tried to do was to humanize the performance, to the five people you did,
Yes.
was to humanize them. It's very easy to laugh at them, but you gave it more value than that.
Yeah.
And I suppose that was your intention to do that, not only for a laugh.
Yeah, no, I've never thought of myself as being funny, you know. Always hoped that people would allow me to transport them by watching what I was doing. And there is some humor in it, there is some heavy stuff in it, but it's like going to see The Big Chill, you know, Larry Kasdan's movie, and listening to Bill Hurt deliver some funny lines. But you don't think of Bill Hurt as a comedian or as a comic. You know, it is I don't like the idea that people put you in a very specific mold because it means you don't have much space to work. I've never been a comic, never done stand-up, you know.
Are there elements in your work, the things you did in your shows, which haven't been explored on film, that you say they should do that? I want to do more. I want to go further than what they do now.
Yes and no. More than anything, I want to be stretched. I want to work with directors who have some idea of what it is they want to do and some idea of what I'm capable of. I've been on the last, I guess, Jack Flash, not Burglar, but I did another film called Telephone, and this one, which I'm doing, with directors who are novice, beginners. So I don't have the benefit of someone who's saying to me, you know, hey, come on, you know, you want to stretch yourself a little bit, you want to give a little more than you're giving. because they don't realize it, because they don't know. You know, they don't know what to look for, and that's a bit of a drag. Because I feel like I can do anything, because that's my job. I'm supposed to be able to play tree bark, or a sound pole, or whatever, because that's the art form, you know.
So you need an old pro.
I need a pro, someone who says, look, you know, stop skating along. You know, let's move here. Try this, try that. I need someone now who can take the reins and say, try this, go in this direction, or try that, or what do you think? And you have a discussion, and from that you find a new plateau. That's what I mean.
So why not Mike Nichols?
Well, because I don't want to hand him a piece of garbage and ask him to direct it. I want to hand him a piece of gold. You know, you want a director that's great, but you only want to give them quality material. Now, I've gotten 2 great scripts in the last 2 weeks, which, you know, one that I'm going to hand to him and say, can we do this? You know, of course, it's wonderful. You know, it's a great piece of work. Whether it is critically acclaimed or whether it is an Oscar pick, doesn't have anything to do with it for me. It's a great stretch for work.
So this is exercise.
Yeah.
We're moving a little bit away from comedy.
That's right.
That was the subject. So what comedies do you like except for Stooges and Abbott? As movies?
As
kind
movies.
of movies. Would it be Frank Capra or something? Or
Capra I love, yeah. Capra, Billy Wilder, he's a guy I really want to work for. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I like Beatty's stuff, Warren Beatty's stuff.
Well, if you look at The Apartment, that comes very close to your Broadway show. That kind of man. Simple man, a lot of values.
Yes.
He lifts them up. He
Yes.
gets over it.
Yes. Well, too, I mean, when you think about it, did you ever see a movie called In-Laws? You must have.
Yeah, yeah.
This, to me, is one of the funniest movies, just hands down. Simply because Alan Arkin is this very normal, regular guy who is put in extraordinary circumstances. And to me, that's what comedy is. It's the normal put into extraordinary circumstances. When it's funny is when you can look at a movie and say, yeah, that's probably how I'd react.
Every street's a boulevard in old New York. So keep smiling and you'll never wear.
So what did you think?
Well,
Do you like me?
yeah, it was, okay.
What about the bag?
Oh, the bag was very good.
Had a charming quality, the bag.
And I have other acts too. That's my picture. My phone number's on the back.
Well, Benny Joe, I really have to think about it.
Okay, so you think you'll use me though?
Well, you know, it has to fit in.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll fit in. I'm sure you'll like me. I'm different.
Yeah, I noticed. I noticed, but I have to think about it.
Okay,
And then I'll let you know.
You haven't finished your lunch.
No,
Have you ever been there? Every street's a boulevard in old New York. Streets are paved with happiness in old New York. We're glad that we're a part of it. We're happy that we came. Each sidewalk is a concrete path to fame. Just remember there's the east side, the west side.